Well, hello everyone. Good day, good evening. Thank you so much for joining today. Please share your hello via the chat box and let us know where you're joining from. I am actually in my office slash, meditation room slash reading room. Actually, my corner escape during the COVID time in New Jersey, USA. And we'll be happy to interact with you via chat and finding out where you are joining from. Happy Thursday, dear We Empower G7 and Women Empowerment Principal community, friends, and collaborators. Happy to be here today. As usual, we have an exciting session, and I am pleased to opening this webinar and to interact with you throughout the chat. My name is Diana, and please feel free to ask any question in connection with We Empower G7, in connection with Webs Learn, and everything you want to know about UN Women. Today is a beautiful day because we have multiple celebrations. I would like to say to you all, Happy Earth Day. There is no planet B, we know for sure. And I would like to encourage all of us. We need urgent actions and policies to reduce plastic use, protect wildlife, and implement sustainable and responsible practices. And yes, girls and women, we do have a leading role and a voice in this agenda. And today, we also have another important celebration, Happy International Girls in ICT Day. We must challenge the gender stereotypes and continue to discourage girls and women from following, studying, and starting careers in ICT. And the 2021 theme of the celebration is Connected Girls and Creating Brighter Future. The Girls in ICT Day is a day to build awareness about gender digital divide, support technology education and skills training, and encourage more girls and young women to actively pursue careers in ICT and STEM. And those who already are following us for a while, you know that we do believe in ICT skills, we do believe in STEM skills, and we advocate the women and girls participation. These two celebrations are very much connected. More women and girls in STEM and ICT means jobs, means more innovations, means diverse backgrounds and better solution to global challenges such as climate change and COVID-19 change. And you also know that if, beginning with September 2020, I think we did launch a series of webinars and learning session called Boost Yourself. We conducted this learning session to build confidence skills, financial fundamental skills, getting a set of basically skills that will be helpful for women and girls in their careers. And we do know that one of these important skills is to make presentation. So thank you so much for making the time and joining us today for the being successful with engaging presentation learning session. Today, we are organizing this session in collaboration with Google Digital Garage, a Grow with Google program that provides free training and tools to help grow your career and business. And of course, this learning session is hosted by We Empower G7 program, which brings this learning session to help everyone learn new skills that is amongst the top requirements on today's jobs market. Here's the agenda for today. And, this is just a highlight of some skills training that we have available today on Webs Learn. So today, please join us or tomorrow or whenever you have a moment of for yourself, for your personal development and training. And feel free to check this skills training opportunities and engage with them. And if you have any questions about this, please let us know during the chat or after the session. And I know you are very, very curious to go ahead with the training. So in today's session, we will learn how different storytelling techniques, presentation materials, and delivery styles can improve how one gives presentation. And today we have a wonderful, wonderful person that will be a trainer. It's Christy. She's a freelance digital skills trainer who delivers training sessions for the Google Digital Garage on tour. She's an experienced digital expert and trainer, and she's passionate about passing on their skills and knowledge. And she is a young voice in the ICT, so we are happy to combine this multiple celebration today and to have Kirsty delivering this wonderful session. So Kirsty, over to you.
Thank you, Diana. I think that was one of the best introductions I've ever had. Thank you very much. So yes, let me share my screen so you can see everything. Here you go. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for all of that introductions, Diana. It was really great to see what else you're doing as well. And wow, what an international audience that I can see in the chat. Let me get that chat open just so I don't miss anything. So my name is Kirsty, like Diana said, and I'm a Google Digital Skills trainer for Google Digital Garage, amongst other things. And I have been working in marketing, skills training, digital training for about 5 or 6 years now. Initially started as a musician, believe it or not, and kind of fell on my feet by connecting with my fellow creative friends, and I found out I was really good at advertising them online and getting them work. So that's how I started. And here I am about 10 years later, kind of doing it as a career, which is something I absolutely love. But I am not here alone. In the chat and in your Q&A section, you will be able to communicate with my colleague, Emma. So Emma is also a Google Digital Garage trainer. So she's here today to help me answer any of your questions that you have. And we'll be working together to sort of shield those questions, answer those questions. Either I'll answer them verbally, or Emma will be able to answer them for you via that Q&A area at the bottom of your screen there on this Zoom. So if you look out for that and ask Emma any questions, then we can get through those together. So we're going to go through today building engaging presentations. And hello, I can see everyone still signing in and saying hello. Great to see so many of you here today. It's so exciting. So what we're going to do is we are going to start by looking at crafting our approach to presentations. Now, presenting is something I absolutely adore, no matter what it is. And I believe if you can get that first bit of crafting, the planning, the structure, the excitement of what you are going to present, you can do anything. So we're going to break that approach down in that first objective. In the middle section today, we're going to look at creating those effective presentations. So I'm going to show you some physical digital tools that you can use. So if you've never created a presentation before, I'm going to show you a couple of tools and tips that you can use in order to create those presentations. And then finally, my favorite bit of this session, I'm going to walk you through some essential presentation skills, things like using our body language, our voice, and how to conquer those nerves if any of you get a little bit nervous. So first of all, what I would love for you to just tell me in the chat so I can see a couple of them coming through. Do you have a memorable presentation that you have ever experienced? And if so, what was it? And it doesn't have to be something traditional like what you're watching today, where you're on a webinar or in a corporate setting. It could be anything. It could be that you saw a salesperson selling you a product and you thought they were really engaging. Tell me, have you seen a memorable presentation before? And you can tell us in the chat. You can let Emma know as well. She's there. Presentation in a Toastmaster group, amazing, Andrew. A colleague presented a complex subject with a storytelling presentation. It's like you're reading my mind there. I icebreaker at Toastmasters, amazing. TED Talks, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of TED Talks. Final dissertation at university and all of my work-related presentations in UN. Amazing. So keep them coming. I love reading through them as we're going as well. So amazing. You saw a presentation with no words and just pictures. Laura, I like that. That sounds really, really awesome. So yes, definitely. Someone's just mentioned storytelling. We're going to touch on that as well today. But that memorable presentation, now think about it. Even if you haven't told me in the chat what it is, you must have seen someone that really captured your attention and you thought, oh, I really want to listen to that person. And that's what we're going to break down by the end of today. How do you capture that? How do you engage with your audience? So there's three main reasons that we potentially might be presenting something. And that's either to communicate something, persuade our audience to do something, whether it's to invest in us or to purchase something, or sometimes it's for instruction or education. So like today, we are showing you and providing education on a topic. So if you can really understand the purpose of why you're there, but while you're planning that structure of your presentation, the outcome can be really, really engaging and really, really powerful. And I've got an amazing presentation. It's actually a TED Talks. It's only a couple of minutes long, so I'm going to press play. And I'd like for you to just really take this in. And as you're watching, let me know in the chat what you get from this, what you think. What's the type of energy you get from this presentation?
Right now.
Start that again.
What you're doing right now, at this very moment, is killing you. More than cars or the internet, or even that little mobile device we keep talking about, the technology you're using the most almost every day is this, your tush. Nowadays, people are sitting 9.3 hours a day, which is more than we're sleeping at 7.7 hours. Sitting is so incredibly prevalent, we don't even question how much we're doing it. And because everyone else is doing it, it doesn't even occur to us that it's not okay. So instead of going to coffee meetings or fluorescent-lit conference room meetings, I ask people to go on a walking meeting to the tune of 20 to 30 miles a week. It's changed my life. You'll be surprised at how fresh air drives fresh thinking, and in the way that you do, you'll bring into your life an entirely new set of ideas. Thank you.
What do you think of that? Short and sweet. But what TED Talks, and it's interesting that someone said TED Talks, because what TED Talk presenters do so well is they have a very clear and thoughtful approach to their presentations. We can follow them really, really precisely. Yes, exactly. Sorry, I cannot pronounce your name there. Cloltide, I think that's right. I hope that's right. She is acknowledging her audience, absolutely. And have you noticed she's got no slides? She knows exactly what she wants to say. And that presentation is about her and her story. And that's number one for me when I'm talking about presentation skills and being an effective presenter. What kind of a presenter are you? And that's why that third objective we're going to talk about later on is one of my favorites. But this presentation, even the statistics, she's giving us scientific facts. But by using her story, we're like, oh yeah, I do sit down more in a day than I'm sleeping at night. I agree with her. So it allows us to connect with her in a really, really clear way. Yeah, and I can see some other things going around her composure. She's calm, she's collected, she's confident. Body language, yeah. She sounds natural. She's like she's having a conversation. Exactly. And the thing that really grabs us is the fact that she is telling a story. And it's her story, it's personable. And telling a story is number one, the top ingredient for making a difference in your presentations. And Christina, I've just seen your question there. What if the content of the presentation is professional and only facts? You can create a story with facts. I spend my life presenting data, talking to businesses about how they can improve their ROI and how we can create better conversions from their website. But we tell a story, we look at people. What does that person in front of me want to know as a story? So this is how it's going to be individual depending on your industry. But we'll talk a little bit about tone in a second. But coming back to telling a story, there are 4 different types of stories, and I want to talk you through some of those. So first of all, we have the origin story. So that's that first one in the yellow box. I started my marketing business with a laptop in a garage, and now I have workspaces in 30 countries across the world. So an origin story you might have heard from companies that have great inventions or have become huge corporations. So they focus on a circumstance, and the narrator of that story has potentially lived through a struggle or a hardship and come out of the end with, and this is us now. Then we have the future vision story. So my marketing business is growing and my goal is to have offices in 30 countries worldwide. So the future vision, you're telling your audience, it's the complete opposite to an origin story. But with the future vision story, you are telling and almost painting a picture for your audience of where you are going. Then we have failure or success. So my first couple of attempts at starting my marketing business failed as I didn't have the right target market. I learned from my mistake and now I have offices in 30 countries across the world. Failure and success stories, these are essentially, I would utilize a failure and success story in that context of in a business context. You know, these are the lessons we've learned in this concept that we're working on. This is what we need to implement in order to have future success. And then we have a realization story on that right hand side there. I've been in the finance industry for 15 years. I went to a talk on marketing strategies and I realized that I wanted to start my own marketing company and to expand into many different countries across the world. So this is all about solving a problem. You have that eureka moment, that realization that you are meant to do something else or the business was meant to succeed in a different area. So this is a really great place to start. And of course, you don't have to stick to one type of story. You could combine the stories. So for example, if I was presenting a budget report, something a little bit more formal, a little bit more data orientated, I might use a success and failure story. And I'm going to focus on what we've learned and what we want to do moving forward. However, with a company update, I might want to use an origin story. And especially if you think about when you join a company, you might have new starters or new people that don't understand the origin of the business and where you've come from. So you could start with an origin story, but actually move into a future vision story to bring them on that journey with you. So absolutely, you can definitely, is it Andrew? You can definitely combine stories depending on the reason that you are making that presentation. And you've also got the ideas pitch. You know, an ideas pitch can involve vision, but it can also involve a realization story as well. So working out how your story and the way that story type fits in to the reason you are presenting is really, really important. First thing to do is decide what the goal is. Nobody is impressed by a presentation that rambles on and on and on and doesn't have a clear goal, and people don't know why they're there. So before you even start building the presentation, understanding why you are creating it is the number one thing to start thinking about. So for example, that TED Talk that we just watched, the main goal of her presentation was to get people to start considering walking more and moving more and potentially approaching their work life differently, walking meetings, for example. But we don't only want to think about the goal. We want to think about, what do we want our audience to think? What do we want them to think at this point of our presentation, at that point of our presentation, when they leave the room at the end of the presentation? But also, what do we want them to feel and when do we want to feel it? Is there a specific poignant part of your presentation where you have your main statistic, or your statistic that is really a connection point of your presentation? Make the decision of when you want to insert that on that presentation journey, depending on how long you've got with your audience. It will allow you to start building that connection. And finally, think about what is the one thing you want your audience to take away when they leave that room. And that's really important, because no matter how engaging that host is, the audience is not going to remember 100% of your presentation. They might remember certain aspects of it really, really vividly. But if you've made the decision to draw attention to that takeaway, I want them to leave the room persuaded to do this. I want them to leave the room with the intention of action to do this. Then it's going to help you start planning the physical presentation a lot easier, a lot smoother, a lot clearer. And there's a couple of ways that you can look at this structure. How do we put that all together? So we want to think about that story, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And you can sort of separate that middle section into two areas. So you've got, first of all, the beginning, start strong. We've got the background, why you're there, what you've got to say to your audience, build that rapport and that connection with them, introduce yourself maybe. And then you've got that middle section, that problem versus solution. What is the problem? And how are you and your presentation and your statistics planning on solving that problem? And then finally, finish as strong as you started. Bring all of your ideas together and find a really, really strong conclusion. And the way we can do that is to make sure we research for our presentation. We identify those most relevant points. We make sure we've got a good story outline in order for us to push forward with. Sit down and plan. There's a great quote that says, for every hour you spend planning, you save yourself 10 hours of doing. And that is just something I totally stick by. If you can correctly plan your time and correctly understand why you are doing something, you could save yourself hours of procrastination work almost, working for the sake of working. And then finally, the last thing on that 3-step plan at the bottom of the screen there is the design. You can then start thinking about the design of your presentation, the look. Do you even need a presentation? Or like our TED Talk presenter that we just watched, can it just be you and your story? So you can start making those decisions on the visual design of how you're going to present. But it's really, really important to think about telling a story for your audience. So I'm going to set you some homework. And I'm never going to know if you've done it or not, but please do, because it definitely will help you. Over the next few days, over the weekend, talk to a friend or family member or colleague, set a timer on your phone or on a clock, or just look at the time, and tell them a story for 3 minutes. And make sure that story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It can be about anything. It can be about anything, but practice telling a story for 3 minutes. And then check in with yourself. Think about the story that you told. Did it have a type? Was it origin? Was it future vision? So that's your homework. Once you've kind of looked at how it felt and how the type of story that you told, maybe do it again in a couple of weeks. Start practicing that. So that brings me to my first pausing for questions. I can see there are a couple coming through, so let me just have a look. What if the goal is gathering feedback and engagement rather than getting them to do a specific thing? How could we approach the presentation then? So Susmita, I mean, that's still a clear goal. That's still a clear action. You want them to either engage with however you're collecting that feedback. Is it digital? Is it there and then manual? So depending on how you're collecting that feedback, you can start making decisions. How are you going to connect with those audience members in order to persuade them that they should provide great feedback for you? yeah, I mean, if you're doing that online, potentially you could look at ways of collecting that data for them signing into a webinar, for example. You could then follow up with newsletters that has a link to that feedback. But yeah, be very vocal about it. The one thing some people don't do is actually ask for feedback when they're presenting. So if that is your main goal, then don't be afraid to say, you know, at the end of this session, I'm actually going to post a feedback form. If you have two minutes straight after, please, while your mind is fresh on this presentation, please take the time to fill out our feedback form. Don't be afraid to ask, would be my advice there. Christine, should I tell them what I want them to take away? Yeah, why not? You could, it depends on what you're presenting, but for example, for today, I want each and every one of you on this call today to take away that feeling. My goal of all presentations that I do and all training sessions that I do, I want my audience to leave my presentations inspired, no matter what the topic. So my goal for you today, I'm going to tell you, so I hope this helps as an example, Christine. I'm going to tell you, I want every single person on this call today to leave this session inspired to try something new when it comes to their presentation skills. Yeah? So of course you can tell them. Let's take one more. Who have we got here? Sunda. I have the worst opening in my presentations. After beginning glitches, I'm good. How do I make my opening better? I feel you so much on this, Sunda. If you're someone who gets nervous, sometimes this can be the problem. When I first started presenting, I used to get this horrible noise in my throat. And I think from what you're saying, those beginning glitches, it was this awful froggy sound and I had no control over it. And it was always when I was nervous. So I would maybe swallow and I'd get this like, but I wouldn't be able to stop it. And it would be, I don't know if anyone ever heard it, but to me it was super loud. So I would always feel really conscious and end up going bright red. And so that, Sunda, is really, really about what you do before to set yourself up. So even to this day, no matter if I am in a rush, I make sure, but I stand behind the screen, I've got a little space behind my computer screens in front of me, and I do up to 10 star jumps, and then I take 3 deep breaths. So there's the secret to my hello and welcome. So that works for me, something physical and then a couple of deep breaths just to make sure my head's in the game and I know where I'm going. So find what works for you. Because a lot of those kind of glitches are about those initial nerves, that adrenaline is pumping through your body. And if you're not used to that, you need to find a way to kind of shake that off. Okay, I'm going to keep going, but I will come back to some of the questions. I can see there's loads, and so I will keep trying to come back to those and answer as many as I can before the end. So our middle section today, we're going to be talking about that physically building your presentation. If you're going to have an actual physical presentation like what I've got today, we're going to walk through some tools and tips that you can have and use in order to emphasize and enhance your story. So first of all, when we're choosing our presentation tools, there's a couple of things we need to consider. First of those 3 things is our audience. So how do our audience want to connect with us? Are we speaking face to face to them? Are we speaking virtually like we are today, where we've got the chat box and we want to try and respond to as many people as possible? How many people are going to be there? That's really important. So if it's virtual and you've got, I don't know, how many have we got? We've got over 200 people here today. So I've got Emma in the chat because there's absolutely no way with all of these comments that I could be making sure each and every one of you gets that attention that you might need today. So thinking about things like, what does my audience need from this presentation? Am I enough, or do I need someone to help me in the chat, the moderation? Do I need some extra links that moderator could potentially post for me? So thinking about that. That middle box there, thinking about the message that you're trying to convey. Do they all need the same message? How are you going to keep them engaged? I can see a couple of you saying inspiration is key, creativity is an important challenge. find the story behind the data. Yes, thanks Layla for commenting to Lynette there. Any more? No more there so far, but absolutely. So that message, that message that you're trying to convey, do you understand what it is? Could you say, like I did today, could you say in the middle of a presentation, I am here and my goal is to have this happen for you as my audience? Because if you can't, you aren't at this stage of actually creating the presentation and using tools yet. You need to go back to the planning stage that we've just passed. And then finally, what tools do you have available to you, but also technology do you have available to you? And thinking about the cost of that. You know, if you're hitting a certain amount of audience size, you potentially need a little bit more of a larger budget, or is there a way that you can present that fits with what you've got available to you? Also location, as I know we've got a global audience here today, in terms of the tools and technology available to your audience. So if you're presenting to an audience that potentially doesn't have the same tools and technology available to you as you do to you, considering all of those variables, how are you going to connect with those people? I love this, to slide or not to slide. I'm not Shakespeare, I promise, but it is an important decision. You know, sometimes the slides can really, really add to what you're saying. If you've got imagery, if you've got data that you want to present in a visual way, they can really, really add to everything you've got to say. But they're definitely not mandatory. Slides are completely optional. And there's a couple of different software that you can choose from depending on what device you're using. And there's loads of other tools that you can use as well. So let me give you a few of those. I don't know if any of you have heard of Mural. So that first one on the left. I'm sure Emma can find you a link to Mural. But Mural is a great remote working tool. I've used this with teams where we work with quite visual teams that don't necessarily respond to a PowerPoint, for example, or a slide, a presentation. So what you can do with Mural is you can put everyone in a room and they can all have like virtual post-it notes where you can get everyone to virtually write what they're thinking, and you can have this fake wall in the virtual room and everyone can post-it note their ideas on the wall. And it doesn't matter whether they're in the same room, it's a virtual tool. So I'm sure Emma can pop that into the chat for you, but it's a great tool. You've also got Canva. Again, I'm sure Emma can pop that link again for you in the chat there. But Canva, if you've not heard of Canva, you can use Canva at no cost. You just need to create an account with your email address. And it's a great tool for building real creative visuals. You could build a presentation on Canva and then save it from there. If you are someone that potentially doesn't have a creative eye, or you feel like that creative layout is not your thing, you could go onto something like Canva and find those templates, make the colors suit your brand and go from there. You've got Slido. Now, if you're using something like Google Slides, you can actually have Slido as an add-on in your browser, which is great because you can enact things like Q&A sections. You can add things like polls. You can have word clouds where your participants might not be on camera, like you guys are not on camera today, and I can't see you. I know I can interact in the chat with you. But if we had Slido, for example, I could tell you to log into Slido and we could do a word cloud live on the screen as you guys type the answers to any questions that I have. So potentially you want to use an interactive tool like that. Or my favorite at the end there, none at all. Maybe you want to go solo, just like our TED talker at the beginning of this presentation. You want to go solo, you want to have nothing at all, and you want to really connect on a one-to-one level with your audience. That's fine. The one thing I would say with anything technical is just make sure you've got a backup. Make sure you know, right, if this doesn't work, I'm going to do this and this. Always have a plan B, because technology is technology. And over the past year, if we've not learned anything, we need to know that we need a plan B sometimes. So make sure you've just got that kind of fail safe for yourself, so that if you're nervous, the last thing you need is not have a plan B and something to go wrong. So if you've got a plan B and something happens, you can help control those nerves by going, that's okay, I've thought about this, I'm going to do this instead. And it'll allow you to keep calm as well. So choose your tool. There's so many presentations that you can presentation software that you can use. Some of these include things like Google Slides, which I've mentioned today. You've got PowerPoint, which is Microsoft. You've got Keynote. So if you're an Apple user, you might be familiar with Keynote. There's also a great program, which is a paid for service called Prezi, Prezi. So if you're looking at creating something a little bit more creative, Prezi might be for you as well. So they all have their differences, but one thing that they do have in common is they all have that main toolbar and the purpose to get your goal and your connection and your story across to your audience. So in terms of the next few slides, I'm going to focus on Google Slides because we're Google Digital Garage, but just so you know, there are other options out there for you. So Google Slides is a great tool if you are looking at being remote. So you're looking at working remotely. You want to collaborate with a team, maybe. You can add edit access to multiple people and all work on it together. It backs up and saves automatically. So as long as you have an internet connection, that presentation will be saved, which is always a lifesaver when you've spent ages building something. You can access it anywhere as long as you've got the internet as well, which is definitely a positive. So depending on whether you're working from home, maybe you've moved to the office, maybe you're working from a different location that's not home or the office, as long as you've got an internet connection and you remember the password to your Google account, your Gmail account, you can sign in and access your Google Slides presentation. So that's a great thing to know about there. In terms of the themes, you can do this on a lot of the different softwares. So let me just get my pointer so I can show you here. Can anyone see my magnifying glass? Just let me know in the chat if you can see that. If not, don't worry. So you can, yeah, great. So when you've got the themes, up at the top here, you can see you've got theme, transition. So when we choose the theme, we get this menu down the right hand side with all of these automatically uploaded themes. So we can choose whichever one we think matches our purpose and our goal. And then we can import that theme at the bottom there so that all of our slides are this theme. And then all we have to do is add our content to the slides. So that can be really, really useful when it comes to creating something quickly, or creating something if you've never created a presentation before. So choose a theme, see if that theme works for you. You can always edit it. You can also edit the theme as well. And I can see that Emma has actually just popped a link in for you to help out further with that. So make sure you save that link. But you can actually customize that theme too. And this is called editing that master slide. So if you watch this video, you go to slide at the top, you then go down to edit master. And that first master slide, when you click onto that, you can see that you can start editing things like the text, the size of the text, the color of the text, and any changes you make in that master slide will then translate to all of the other slides in your presentation. So you can see in that video, and I'll play it again just while I'm speaking. So you can see in that tutorial video that on the master slide, we edited that top header. So we go to slide in the menu, edit master, make sure we click on that master slide at the top left. We are clicking to edit that master title slide, so that top slide, and we're changing the font. And once we've done that on the master slide and saved, press that X on the side, all of our main titles now for the rest of our presentation will be that font. So there are ways that you can then edit that theme. You don't have to stick with what's there. Additionally to that, you do have the navigation bar. So you can see at the top, you can give your presentation a title that's usually at the top left. That's the layout, the theme. If you want any transitions between slides, you can add them there as well. If you want to change the background image, you can add that with that section on the right hand side. And then a lot of you will recognize the rest of these images, because if you're using any Microsoft or Google products already and software already, you'll notice that you can add lines, shapes, images, text box, and you can use the mouse to select anything on the slides. You've got your undo and redo, and of course your save and your print there as well. And the little plus is to add a new slide in there as well. So there's the toolbars of this software is very, very similar as we work through them. With Google Slides, when you're ready to present, so if you're ready to present like I am to you today, you've got that little present button on the right hand side. It's usually at the top right of the screen. You can also press this little drop down button and actually present in something called presenter view. So what that will do is it will put your presentation full screen, but it will give you a pop out of what they call speaker notes. So if you have written yourself some of the notes, you can then have those notes on a different page, or if you're face to face, you might want to put your notes on a tablet in front of you. And you can do that by having your screen in presenter view. So I hope that helps in terms of the navigation of some of this software, because they are all very, very similar. And whether you're using Keynote, whether you're using a Microsoft PowerPoint, the toolbars are very, very similar in terms of functionality. Then we come to our title. The title of your presentation is what gets us hooked. It's really, really important because it adds to the goal of the presentation. It allows people, if you're in a physical conference, for example, so I've been to some huge music conferences, and the only way you know if you're in the right place is if the presentation or the screen has the right title on it. So it's so important. Additionally, I've actually been to, I think it was like a psychology presentation, and it was one of the most interesting presentations I've ever been to in my life. And on the screen, whenever all of the audience were coming in, sitting down, there was a task as a title. So it was a question and a little task. And when the presenter came in, he came in, and if you hadn't completed the task, you're asked to leave. And the statistics that he presented, it was just so shocking that it made that presentation so memorable. So potentially you could use that title to be a little bit risque, depending on your industry, depending on, the type of presentation that you're giving at that point. Additionally, in terms of the actual design, when you're designing your slides, you want to start thinking about the information you put on the slides. I call it death by PowerPoint when I attend presentations and they look like the one on the left. And I'm sure many of you can definitely say, yes, I agree. I've been there. You've been to a presentation and all they do is read what is on the slide, and you think, you could have sent me this presentation and I could have read that myself. And that's what we want to avoid. So think about using as little text as possible and practicing what it is you want to get across. Remember, it's not about the slides. You are the presenter and they're there to see you. This is meant to support what you've got to say. So a couple of top tips in terms of your presentation design and creation. Be considerate on the number of slides. So if you know you've got an hour to present, you don't want a presentation with 100 slides on it, because you're never going to get through it. Keep your bullet points concise and to the point. Think about your font and the color of the font as well. Is it readable? Because just as bad as having loads of text on a slide, you don't want text that's hard to read, a bad color, or too small, because then you're losing your audience's attention because they can't see what's on the screen. So think about that. Vary your content. So if you've got a few videos, you've got a couple of images, you've got a couple of text-based slides, vary it, so that you can keep that pace, you can keep the conversation going. When we talked at the beginning about storytelling, and you felt like some of the best conversations that you had were conversations with the presenter, rather than them just talking at you. Think about that. And again, remember to change your pace. Don't be afraid to take a pause. If you ask a question, don't be afraid to wait for an answer. And sometimes that adrenaline and those nerves can push us through those pauses. And we get to the end like, oh, what just happened? So don't be afraid to change up that pace a bit. So running an online presentation, there are a couple of differences, not too many in terms of your confidence and your body language, but in terms of the technical side of it, make sure you know how to share your screen. Make sure you know the software that you're using. Are you going to be creating a downloadable video version or a rewatchable video of the recording that you're presenting? Are you going to have live audience participation? And if so, how are you going to manage that? For example, with the moderator today. How easy is that software to use for you, but also for your audience? And finally, what's the cost of it? So think about some of those online areas that you might want to consider before you put an online presentation on. And that brings me to my second pausing for questions. We do have about 15 minutes left. So let me have a look. I've got a couple of questions here. Does the story need to be personable? How do we make stories for business subjects? Again, Christina, it's better if your stories have a connective quality. So your audience can go, oh yeah, I've done that. Yeah, absolutely. But there's loads of ways that you can do that in a business opportunity. It might be that the data you're presenting reflects a journey of a customer, for example. So you can start telling the story of the customers through the data. So I hope that helps. But yeah, try and find out who's in the room. You know, have you got an international audience? Do you have an audience from your own company? Do you have couldn't get my words out then. Do you have an audience that's from your own country? Are you all doing the same role, or is your audience all doing different things in different industries? So try and get a grasp on why they're there. Have we got another? Let me take one more. Do you think an icebreaker is always important? I enjoy icebreakers when I'm face to face. I mean, we did a bit of an icebreaker today, and that was me just asking you to get involved in the chat, telling me, you know, what was your most memorable presentation. That's fine. It doesn't always have to be a strict icebreaker, but yeah, I mean, Coletta, it depends on your industry. It's a hard one to answer. Depends on your industry, depends on the people in the room. But it's always good to at least get a conversation started, because it allows your audience to relax and it allows that engagement to be increased. Okay, so I'm just having a look. And we've got a little bit less time than I thought, so I'm going to move on. But I'm sure Emma can come to some of those questions in the Q&A as I'm talking. So to finish today's session, I am at my favourite section of this session, boosting our presentation skills. So that successful presentation is more than just the content. We've done our planning now. We understand what our goal is. We've got a bit creative with the physical slides if we're going to use that. We've looked at the tools. Now it's about you and practicing that. And deciding what kind of presenter you want to be. And when we talked about those memorable presentations earlier, every single one of you talked about the presenter. And that just hammers this home even more. So deciding exactly what type of presenter you want to be can leave you feeling a lot more comfortable with your content, a lot more confident. And a lot of people think that confident public speakers or confident presenters are just naturally like that. Not at all. We practice every day. And the only way to get better is to continuously practice. Think about a child that picks up a new instrument. And I'm sure my parents can vouch for this. When I was 8 years old and I started playing the violin, I'm pretty sure I wasn't very good when I first started. But as I grew older, as I practiced more, that muscle memory came and I became better at it. And it's the same with presenting. It's the same with controlling those nerves. It's the same thing. So the more you can practice and the more you can challenge those nerves that you might get and challenge that adrenaline feeling, the better and the more confident you will get at being able to make those decisions on the spot. And it will allow you to do things like naturally adapt to your audience, whether that is one person or a crowd of people. Because in reality, I mean, it's a little bit differently virtually like this. I could have a one-to-one of, okay, I'm not going to talk as I am now. But I could have 30 people or 3,000 people. And apart from my internal nerves about the amount of people on the call, you know, there isn't anything different in terms of the way I'm going to engage in a presentation like this. I can still have a conversation with you. I can still tell my stories. I can still smile at the camera, you know? But yeah, okay, face to face, that might be a little bit more daunting. And we're going to have to look around the room a little bit more and make sure we get eye contact and make sure we're heard at the back of a room. So we can start adapting, but there is no difference to having a conversation one-on-one and bringing that part of you into a group presentation is what makes you look confident. Loads of you commented on that conversational side of it. And that can be adapted to a huge crowd of people or one-to-one situation. And there's a couple of other things with audience participation that you can break down. Interact with your audience. Today, you know, I'm trying to keep an eye on this chat. It is moving fast, but I'm trying to make sure I can remember some of the things that you want to know about and make my stories a bit more relevant to the people in the chat. Yeah, absolutely agree. Being in debating club helped me so much. I love that, Emma. That's very, very cool. But definitely don't be afraid to ask your audience questions. And it doesn't always have to be questions that you're waiting for answers. It could be reoccurring questions. You could tell them in front of you right now, I want to ask you a question, write down the answer and look at it after this. You know, you utilize that and don't be afraid to ask them questions. That middle section, be appreciative. If you are asking a question that you want an answer to and people make the effort to connect back with you, thank them. Say thank you so much for your answer. I really, really appreciate that. And then finally, practice that active listening. If you've asked a question at the beginning of your presentation, so for example, today was about the memorable stories, try and remember a couple of those important facts, because you can later bring them up. And it doesn't matter how many you remember. Even if you remember one and you go, oh yeah, I remember that you said this earlier. Everyone else in that audience is going to go, oh, they're not just talking at me, but they're actually listening. So I want to tell that presenter something. So actively listen. Try and get good at mentally noting down a couple of things. Avoid that content overload. Like when we were talking about putting too much text on the slide, the same with what you're saying. The reason that TED Talk worked really, really well was because it was short and sweet and to the point. So make sure when you're in that planning phase, you're not trying to squeeze too much into a really short amount of time. You want to tailor those stories and tailor that presentation to provide as much value as possible and have a clear focus with that as well. And number 3 on this slide, that pause, the power of the pause. Don't forget about the pace. And a pause can help you take a breath, clear your mind before you move on to the next spot. But a pause can also help your audience, you know, finish the notes they're writing or think about the question you've just asked them. So don't forget the pauses. And then finally, your physical voice and your body language is really, really important too. Your voice is a really powerful tool. So don't forget to do things like warm it up. There's loads of videos on YouTube where you could do a 2-minute vocal warm up for presenters. Loads of them. Try them out. And just get yourself, you know, the star jumps that I said earlier, your body warmed up, your voice warmed up. Think about things like the volume. How loud do I need to be for the room that I'm in? If you're virtual, how close or how far away are you from your microphone? What style? So that comes down to those questions earlier about what if I'm in a more corporate environment? So what style do you need to adapt in that presentation? Is it more fun, more conversational, like we can do today? Or is it a little bit more formal, where, you know, you might have a suit and tie on, or a suit on, or more formal clothes that you are ready to go? Think about that tone. Think about the pace with that voice as well as the body language. What's your body language communicating? And there's a quick bit of homework for you to take away. Practice doing this. If I said to you in your chairs right now, sit like you are super happy, I bet every single one of you are like, a whole body lifts. When I say to you, be happy, and you imitate that, it's like, shoulders back, chin up. But if I said to you, be nervous, we close our bodies. So start taking note of that. When you're speaking to people, do you cross your arms? Do you close in, or are you open? Because those little nudges, those little poses that you take naturally can really convey to your audience confidence or nerves, confident or unconfident, knowledgeable or not knowledgeable. Practice the power poses. Do your Wonder Woman or your performer to get that energy before you start and you get going. And to finish off, if you are in a physical presentation and you're stood up, or even if you're sat down, think about your stance. Make sure you're not moving too much. You're distracting your audience, moving side to side, moving out of camera. If you're online, make sure you know what your frame is, and you're connecting with that audience. And again, practice. I can't stress that enough. The more you practice, the better you will become at adapting to your audience. You'll start thinking about your voice in a different level every time. The more you practice, you'll start considering your body language more and more and more, because that practice is a performance, and that practice will allow you to really hone in your presentation skills. So that brings me to the end of today's session. I know there are a few questions waiting. There's loads of questions, but we are running out of time, unfortunately. You will have this presentation to watch again, I believe. There's lots to take away there. I'm going to bring Diana back on screen, I believe, or is it Anna I'm bringing on? Who am I bringing on? Diana?
Yes, I think you can bring all of us and test.
I'm going to bring everyone. Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much.
All of us.
Thank you so much for having me today. And thank you, Emma, in the chat for answering so many questions. I could see them coming through. So thank you for the audience for being so engaging. And I hope I've inspired you to get out there and hone in on those presentation skills. You've got this. You can do it.
Thank you so much, Kirsty. First of all, thank you for your passion for this subject, because without your passion, I don't think anything is possible. I do believe that it's a learning process, and of course, we all will learn how to deliver a good presentation, because you shared your tips with love, dedication, and here's just several words that, I noted for myself like a flower. Story, authenticity, make your voice heard, find your voice, emotions, credibility, the process, keep it simple. It is never just about facts, core message, design presentation. And I'm sure, we had so many participants around the world, and I'm sure each of us has its own set of words that we will take away. So we will continue the collaboration, and hopefully next time our participants will join us with the feedback telling us, what did they learn and what do they remember. And now I would like to invite Anna Fals, manager, We Empower G7 program, head Women Empowerment Principal Secretariat at UNWomen, to deliver some short remarks and some thoughts after this amazing presentation. Thank you so much, Kirsty and Emma. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you very much, Kirsty, Emma, Diana, for a wonderful hour of a lot of learnings. And I would like to thank you very much, as well as our other partners with the European Union, as Diana had mentioned, and all of the participants that have been extremely, even though I wasn't the presenter, I was trying to keep the pace with all the participants that were very, very active. So I would like to thank all the participants for your contribution to this session. It's been extremely valuable. And I think that you ended with it, the practice, practice, practice. And I started myself already in college to volunteer to do presentations. At that time, it wasn't much through digital tools, or it was always in person. Not to disclose my age in any way, but it was in person, the presentation at the time. And I remember my colleagues or the other students in my class were asking, why do you always volunteer? And I'm like, this is the time. I need to practice right now. So once I get out in the workplace, I know the basic. I've tried it out, because it's not like the first time it will be a perfect presentation, but it comes with practice. And I think that's what you really were talking about. And I think the key ingredients, we heard from some of the audience that passion is important, but also that you need to believe in what you're talking about. If you don't believe it, how can you be passionate, and how can you really kind of put the main points in your presentation? And I think that from my experience, the best presentations is when there is one key message that it's for you today, was that everyone will try something new after this presentation. That was your one objective, but also to have a key message. And then that can, build up to make that point and make that message. But I think I saw some of the comments from the audience, we shouldn't be trying to crowd in too much information. Maybe we can sequence the information in different presentations and not feel that we need to say everything at once. Because if we're trying to crowd in too much information, nobody will take anything with them afterwards. And I think today, the audience has really, in the comments that I saw, taken a lot away from how to make an excellent presentation. And I'm sure I saw there was somebody who's making a presentation tomorrow that is already taking this into account. So good luck for that presentation. We will now have, and I'm sure everyone else is ready to go and try this out. And don't feel discouraged if it doesn't work out perfectly the first time. The second time will be much better, and the third time and the fourth time, etc. So good luck to everyone going forward. And I hope that many of your presentations will also focus on gender equality and women's empowerment, which we are trying to relay here from you and women. So thanks to everyone. Thanks to Kirsty, Emma, and Diana, and also to everyone else. We have now started the polls, so I hope you can stay for a few more minutes to just give us some feedback on the session. So thanks, everyone, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Hannah. So please let us know how informed you feel, or what is your perception of the information that you have after the learning session. And I'm happy that 46% feel that they are informed, 38% feel they are very well informed. So I think we did a great job today, and thank you so much for sharing your positive feedback with us. And we have one more poll. And we would like to know how satisfied you are with the information received. Please be sincere. We are here to help you. We are here to collaborate and to bring you new topics and new information. So your voice and your feedback is always welcomed. And I think those who are following us for a while already can test that we respond to our audience needs and take the feedback very serious. Okay, so just 20 seconds more. I know for a lot of us, it's lunchtime or evening time, dinner time almost, time to spend with your family and friends, maybe get a walk or do a yoga or a jog. So I don't want to keep all of us too much connected, just a little bit more, 5 seconds more. So thank you so much. We have such a positive feedback. 74% of the participants responded that we are very satisfied, and it makes us feel very happy, but also it makes us feel very content that the planning and the information that you requested from us previously was delivered, and it's something useful for you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for amazing collaboration. Until next time, goodbye. Take care. Please stay safe.